Jacqueline Aids had become so obsessed with the successful CEO that she bombarded him with 159,000 text messages. She flooded his phone with text messages that read, "I love you," and "I'd make sushi out of your kidneys, and chopsticks out of your hand bones." She also wrote, "I need money. You will give to me. I'll force it." In April 2018, the CEO was shocked to witness Aids on surveillance cameras walking around his house. He was out of the country at the time and called the police. When officers arrived, they found her in the bathtub. She had also brought her 2 dogs to the house, as well as a meal to cook and a bottle of wine. She was arrested on charges of threatening, stalking, and harassment. In 2012, Leanne Zalumis broke into the home of Simon Cowell in Holland Park, London, by smashing her way through a window with a brick. Cowell was forced to hide in a closet during the incident. He recalled, quote, "I ended up hiding in one of my wardrobe closets until the police found her. That was a little spooky." Zalumis was discovered in his bathroom, still holding the brick, and she had wrote "Help me" on the walls in her own blood. She told police when they arrived at the scene that she knew Cowell well and was a guest in his home. She also claimed that Cowell was actually stalking her via Twitter. Zalumis ultimately received a restraining order and was ordered to remain inside between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Dawnette Nye was jailed for 3 years for stalking and sending threatening letters to celebrity Michael Douglas. She detailed how she would cut Douglas's wife and actress, Catherine Zeta-Jones, into pieces. Nye wrote, "We are going to slice her up like meat on a bone and feed her to the dogs." In 2005, a letter from Zeta-Jones was read out in a Los Angeles court. It stated, "You have profoundly affected me in how I conduct my life. Your actions will be with me the rest of my life, how I will be constantly observing, looking over my shoulder. You will never be famous, you will never be infamous, you are just a criminal." In November 2001, Andrew Bagby broke up with his girlfriend, Shirley Turner, and 2 days later, he was found fatally shot in a parking lot in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Turner was the main suspect. She was eventually arrested in Newfoundland, but she managed to post bail. A custody battle soon followed for their son. In August 2003, Turner took her own life at 42 years old and that of her infant son, 13-month-old Zachary. Turner had previously stalked an ex-boyfriend whom she overwhelmed with phone calls, forcing him to move towns, but she continued to make visits to his apartment. He contacted the police expressing that he feared what Dr. Turner would do next. Margaret Mary Ray believed she was romantically involved with David Letterman. Ray repeatedly broke into his home in Connecticut. In 1988, she stole his Porsche, which she drove through the Lincoln Tunnel. She claimed to be Letterman's wife when she couldn't pay the toll. She was convicted for trespassing, which resulted in a 10-month jail term alongside 10 months spent in mental institutions. Ray was diagnosed with erotomania, a delusion disorder where the person believes another person is infatuated with them. Letterman looked on the bright side and even joked about Ray on his talk show. In his sketch Top 10 Things I Have to Do Before I Leave NBC, one of the items was send change of address forms to that woman who breaks into my house. In 1998, 46-year-old Ray was instantly killed when she committed suicide by kneeling in front of an oncoming train in Hotchkiss, Colorado. Ruth Tagg stalked and harassed British comedian Ken Dodd. Tagg mailed a dead rat to Dodd's home and sent a dozen threatening letters, 6 indecent photographs, and 3 t-shirts with offensive messages directed at his longtime girlfriend Ann Jones. In 2003, Tagg pleaded guilty to setting Dodd's house on fire by shoving burning rags through his letterbox. Luckily, both Dodd and his friend were not on the property at the time. A court heard that Tagg believed that Dodd's girlfriend was her love rival. Mr. Justice Moreland said, "Clearly, Miss Tagg needs a detailed psychiatric assessment." In the early 1990s, Yolanda Saldivar began repeatedly calling Selena Quintanilla's father and requesting to start a fan club for the singer. Eventually, He gave in to her persistence, and Saldivar became president of the fan club. In 1995, Saldivar was fired for embezzling funds, and Selena drove to meet her in a Texas motel to retrieve financial records. Saldivar stalled by saying she had been raped during a trip to Mexico and needed to be driven to a hospital. Following a heated argument, Saldivar shot the singer in the back. Selena was able to stagger to the reception desk to ask for help. Her last words were, "Yolanda, room 158. She was pronounced dead in a hospital at 23 years old. Saldivar is serving a life sentence in Gatesville and will become eligible for parole in 2025. Actor Jeff Goldblum was harassed by Linda Ransom for almost a decade. Despite previous restraining orders, Ransom continued to show up at Goldblum's Los Angeles home and harass him during public appearances since she first met the actor during one of his acting classes in 2001. He had previously been denied a restraining order against the woman, but he was successful when he was able to present evidence of a fresh threat. Goldblum stated, "Over the past decade, I have experienced substantial emotional distress due to Miss Ransom's continuous stalking, harassing, and threatening behavior. I am frightened of Miss Ransom and feel she poses a serious threat to my personal safety." In 2012, a judge ordered Ransom to stay 300 feet away from Goldblum for 3 years. In 2013, Alec Baldwin told a court that his life had been turned into a horror film at the hands of his stalker, Genevieve Sabourin. The actor claimed he'd met Sabourin once for dinner and he denied that any sexual encounter took place. Since the dinner, he'd been inundated with unwanted phone calls, emails, and threats. The court also heard that Sabourin had started showing up at his house, appearing at his public events, and terrorizing his wife. According to Sabourin, she had a brief romance with Baldwin, and when he broke it off, she wanted to know why. Sabourin was found guilty of stalking and ordered to serve 6 months in jail. In 1992, Lisa Michelle Lambert of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, was found guilty of first-degree murder for slashing the throat of her love rival, 16-year-old Lori Show. Lambert's classmate Tabitha Buck and ex-boyfriend Lawrence Butch Youngkin were also involved in the murder. 1 year earlier, Lambert had been pregnant with Youngkin's child when he started dating Show. The 19-year-old Lambert was obsessively jealous with Show and began showing up at her work as well as telling witnesses that she was out to hurt Lori. On December 20, 1991, Youngkin dropped off Lambert and Buck at Show's home. The girls entered the house, and together, they stabbed Lori several times, causing a gash to the throat, a punctured lung, several wounds to the head, and other defensive wounds. Show's body was discovered by her mother. During the trial, a letter Lambert wrote to her ex-boyfriend was shown. It stated, "I know I'm not an angel, but Lawrence, I never got mad enough to kill." Lambert and Buck were sentenced to life in prison without parole. Youngkin received a lesser sentence for his testimony and was released in 2003.